Mission 4 is going to be a bit different because it's the first mission where we start out playing as a different character. So, V has his pets. He has Nightmare, Shadow, and Griffin. I am not a V player. I would even go so far as to say I am pretty bad at playing V, which is perfect because the point of these videos, the target audience, is anyone who's played the game, not people that have hundreds and hundreds of hours. You don't need that. I want these guides to serve as something that just about anybody could look at and that it could help, that maybe they could see it and think, alright, I'll give it a try, maybe I can succeed here. So I won't be doing anything fancy as V. I won't be riding Nightmare, I won't be using a lot of the moves that Shadow and Griffin actually have. Most of the time, I'm just gonna be spamming the attack button. That's my secret. Use the camera to your advantage. Go to a corner, look away from enemies, and press that attack button with Shadow and Griffin. Read the book, gain Devil Trigger, and when it's full, summon Nightmare. If you do this, Nightmare will almost always guarantee you a very, very high style rank. Royal Fork is also another nice way to finish off enemies without putting yourself in danger. The startup of the move has iframes, it hits multiple enemies, slows them down, and kills whichever ones are in a stalemate, so it's extremely effective. Just doing the fight like I did, you'll probably have the Hell Antinoras alive by the end, but with Nightmare out, and using the camera to look away from them, making sure they don't charge at you or attack you, they should go down without causing any real trouble. And even if you get hit here towards the end, a good amount of your style is going to come from the next battle. This next encounter consists of a few pyrobats and a behemoth. As stated in the last mission, pyrobats aren't worth much for style, so don't even worry about raising your style rank, just kill them as they spawn. Read the book and try to fill up the DT meter as much as possible. When the behemoth digs underground, stop reading and stay mobile. If you're jumping around the arena, he will never hit you when he comes up. After the pyrobats are taken care of, I focused on destroying the chains binding the behemoth, and by that time I had a full bar of Devil Trigger. I summoned Nightmare, did a little bit more damage with Royal Fork, and just smacking him with the cane while it was down, got a little bit greedy, got hit, and then decided to hang back. If you read the book while Nightmare is out, it will extend the length of the Devil Trigger activation. So even though I got hit several times, I still managed to kill the behemoth with a double S rank. The behemoth is the important one in this fight. He's a big boy worth big points. So above all else, make sure you have a double or triple S rank when you kill him. After the cutscene where V summons Nightmare, just run. This is not a required encounter. I always trick myself into thinking it is, but it's not. Just start running towards the bridge, unsummon Nightmare, you'll probably end up with more style points at the end because of it. Regardless, I ended up doing it, so I will show it. An important thing to note is if you're better than I am with V, and you feel confident in inputting commands, doing combos with him, or riding Nightmare. If you decide to jump on Nightmare's back and do his moves yourself, then obviously feel free to do that. But again, this guide is the simplest, easiest, and most beginner-friendly way to victory. And for me, that is just to let Nightmare do his thing. The next required encounter starts off with some basic enemies, but once they're taken care of, a nobody spawns. This is important because the nobody is another heavy hitter when it comes to style points. Use these basic demons to get your rank as high as possible and follow the same principles as before. Use the camera to your advantage, look away from them when possible, and summon Nightmare when your bar is full. Speaking of using the camera, V has other ways of dealing with and dodging enemy attacks as well. It's not important in this fight, but it will be in some later fights coming up. It should be noted that jumping is fine with V, but using the side dodge where V slides on Shadow is extremely powerful. It's so powerful, in fact, that by doing multiple side dodges in a row, that means that V literally cannot be hit. I used a taunt while the nobody was spawning to make sure I stayed at a double S rank rather than dropping down to a single S rank. Nobodies can typically be very annoying. Thankfully, Nightmare essentially trivializes them, especially if there's only one like there is here. He basically got stuck in a corner, juggled, and then fell over and died. Typically when a nobody is able to do its thing, how it works is it has 3 masks. Each one kind of changes what the nobody will decide to do. One of the masks has the nobody stay back and throw eyeballs, which is probably the most dangerous of the 3. One of them makes the nobody become hyper aggressive and try to grab the player all the time. And the final one will try to jump at the player, it will try to summon other friends, things like that. Just be mindful of which mask is active and react accordingly. On your way through the streets of Ohio, there will be several optional encounters with some pyrobats and behemoths and hellcana. Some tentacles also pop up, but I chose to ignore them as well and just rushed to the next encounter. The final fight before the boss has a bunch of small fry and a hell Judeca, which in my opinion is probably the most annoying enemy to fight, especially as V. So once again, my principle is to let Nightmare handle it. He'll probably delete the small fry from existence, and you can keep reading while chaos reigns around you. Normal Griffin shots usually won't damage the Hell Judeca unless he's in the middle of an action. What they will do is kind of force the Hell Judeca's AI to have him teleport away more often. You can use this to your advantage because he'll be less aggressive. In conjunction with using Camera Trick, this will allow you to stay safe, continue reading, and have Shadow do real damage to him while you gain Devil Trigger. Once you gain enough Devil Trigger, you can obviously summon Nightmare again to finish the Hell Judeca off, but I personally recommend saving a full meter of Devil Trigger to use as soon as you get into the boss fight instead. Nidhogg can be very difficult and very annoying. The first thing I recommend is to summon Nightmare. Another thing is to stay in the very back of the arena. When you get the chance to kill the tentacles, use Royal Fork so it also hits the other parts of the boss. When he gets knocked down after all 3 of his little tentacles are destroyed, hit him with the bird, hit him with the cat, work on getting your Devil Trigger up again, and save it for when Shadow dies or when the tentacles come back. And remember that thing I mentioned a few minutes ago about side dodging with Shadow and being untouchable? That's useful here. Shadow is your lifeline when things get a little hairy and the boss starts getting more aggressive. The best way to avoid damage in this fight is to lock on and side dodge repeatedly. If you don't have Devil Trigger, if Griffin's dead, lock on to the boss and side dodge. You'll gain Devil Trigger, you'll dodge everything, you will never get hit, and then Griffin will revive, or you'll gain enough DT to just summon Nightmare and revive your pets that way. Another very useful tip is to charge Griffin's basic attack up to the 3rd level just by holding the button, where he does 3 lines of lightning. This is extremely useful when all 3 of Nidhogg's tentacles are out because it will hit all 4 parts of the boss himself and the 3 tentacles. It's one of the very few times I recommend charging up Griffin. Now on Dante Must Die difficulty, when Nidhogg gets low enough health, he will replace his 3 tentacles with 2 other copies of himself. The same principle applies here. Stay back, charge up Griffin's shots, and summon Nightmare. Now at this point of the fight, you might be thinking, Lucid, you just preached all of this stuff about side dodging with Shadow, but you haven't side dodged a single time in this fight. I chose to do that for a reason. So, side dodging can be a bit awkward. Let's say the boss does one of his moves where he thrusts himself forward and you're doing a side dodge, but all of a sudden the boss is on your side. So you do a jump back instead and you get hit, or some other sort of jank happens. You end up doing a jump instead of a side dodge, and then you get hit. If you would rather avoid that, or you don't trust your side dodges or anything like that, I wanted to show that jumping is just as viable. Side dodging is safer because there is literally zero risk of you ever getting hit during the animation, but you can dodge pretty much everything while jumping as well. And again, getting hit in the boss fight doesn't matter too much, just make sure you survive. That's the most important thing at this point. If you can do that and summon Nightmare one more time when Nidhogg is at low health, you can bring it home. I had 800 more style points at the end of the mission than I needed, and honestly, if you skip that one optional encounter that I didn't, you'll probably finish the mission with more than that.